Welcome to Modus Cafe. Join us for fun, lighthearted, and educational conversations around training, athletic longevity, and the human side of climbing, with your hosts Mercedes Pollmeyer and Katja Dev.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Modus Cafe. Hi, Mercedes.
Hi.
And today, I'm very excited about today's episode because we'll be talking about age. We love talking about age in climbing, age in general, and mostly we want to talk about redefining, quote unquote, old age in climbing. It's a topic that's been coming up a lot recently. We love talking about it. We love busting some myths that we're going to do. And it's just so inspiring to see people still climb in what we might think of older age. And people still climb well. And certainly people are still having a lot of joy climbing when they're older. And older is relative, which is what we want to talk about. And actually, I will just say right away, today's episode is a very spontaneous episode. So normally we plan them out, but today it's very spontaneous because just before Mercedes and I started recording today's podcast episode, I said, oh my gosh, Mercedes, the nationals are going on right now. The Yeti climbing nationals are happening right now. So by the time you're listening to this, they will be over. We are recording this on what is today, October 14th, and they are happening in Salt Lake City. And this episode will probably air in about 4 weeks. So there's a slight delay, but it'll be really fun because we'll do some predictions. So anyway, I told Mercedes, I was like, do you know who's competing in the nationals this year for lead climbing? And it is no other than Chris Sharma. And not only is it very exciting because I might go and see him climb because, you know, I have the privilege of living in Salt Lake City, but also because it's really wonderful to see him come back at the age of 43, which is what is so inspiring to me and why we decided we should maybe record an episode on this. It is just, really great to see him come back. And I should say right away at this moment in time, as we're recording this, literally live, the semifinals for lead are happening. And Chris Sharma, not only is he coming back and competing at the age of 43, you should also know, if you don't know much about nationals, just like 10 years ago, you didn't even have to qualify for nationals. I think anybody could just go, right, for climbing. You always had to qualify. Okay, maybe I'm wrong with this. Okay, never mind, forget what I just said. But anyway, the point is you have to qualify for nationals, right? You can't just go. So he came to the US. He actually doesn't live here right now, and he qualified in all the qualifying events, and now he's competing. And when he went into a semifinals this morning, he actually went into semifinals in 10th place, meaning what I mean with that, he qualified in 10th place. So there are 74 athletes competing in the men's lead competition, and he placed 10th in the qualifying round. I mean, even just that is amazing. And not just because of his age, but he also just came back from taking, I don't know, a 15, 20-year break from competition. I don't know, like a very long break from competition climbing. Let it be 10 years. I'm not sure. But he just came back and is placing really well right away. It's just so amazing and just really inspiring to see. So I thought we should talk about it. We see a lot of also just non-professional climbers in their 40s crushing and just having a lot of fun and climbing really well. And I just think it's so important to spread the word that, just because you turn 30 or 40, your climbing life is by no means over. It's maybe just starting. And that's what we want to talk about today. So anyway, obviously, I'm very passionate about this and so inspired by Chris Sharma coming back. And before we dive into some of our age-related thoughts that Mercedes and I have, let's do some predictions, Mercedes. So the semifinals are happening right now. Chris Sharma has not climbed yet, but he did qualify in 10th place. What do you think? We were just going to do a fun little thing since this episode airs afterwards, 4 weeks later. Let's maybe try to predict what happens. So Mercedes, I was going to ask you, where do you think Chris Sharma might end up? What place?
When was qualifier? 2 days ago?
Yeah.
I'm trying to see how many days of rest he gets.
I see.
That matters. If he got a whole week of rest, I think he would probably do pretty well because he's in the semis right now. Mm-hmm. That's what he's about to step up and do.
And finals are tonight, yeah.
And then finals are tonight. Oh my God.
I know, it's crazy.
And the top 20 get to go to finals?
I think it's 25. What? Yeah,
25. Okay. So I bet, you know, yeah, I think he can make it to finals. Totally. I don't know how well he's going to do in finals though. So that's in terms of placing. I don't know. I don't think he's not going to podium. I believe that. I don't think he's going to podium. Will he maintain his 10th position? Probably not. I know. It's because that is something with, I think, with age, and he proclaims that he does not train, which if you're competing, you're training. But if he proclaims that he's not really like someone who trains, then his recovery is going to not be as good as some of the other athletes. And that's real. Like you can be the best climber and still come last in a competition, you know, because of so many other things. And often like the person who's most conditioned and the smartest climber will win nationals. That's what I've seen pretty consistently across competition. So yeah, I don't know. I think maybe top 15.
Yeah,
Sorry,
I definitely
Chris. Love you, man, but we'll see. I would love to be wrong. I would love to be wrong.
I definitely think he's gonna make finals. But I think for me, the recovery that I really don't know. I don't know how much he trained, or if he trained at all, or I don't know how much he's climbing. I don't know what his recovery will be like. That's a really good point. My sort of thoughts were more along the lines of I don't know much about how well he does on competition routes. And one thing that's nice about qualifiers is you get 2 routes you get to climb, and the combination of those 2 routes will be your score for, you know, your placement. But what's interesting about semifinals and finals is you only get this one route to climb. And so how well you can do with this, how well you can do, you know, on-siting a specific sequence and like the different competitions that I don't know. I don't know how much Chris has climbed on like the new style, you know, competition scene, if that matters. But I'm definitely gonna give him a higher likelihood of doing better than Mercedes. Let me just think. I think he'll do better than 10th place. That's my prediction. Because I think just the stoke will carry him really far. And I think he's going to have a crowd that will be cheering for him like no one's business. That's what I think. I think I will give him top 5. Okay, we'll see.
Awesome.
What happens.
I hope you're right.
It is a little bit tricky. I can see this, and I think what's interesting about competition is you really only have this one route. You know, but I actually think something that is beautiful and it comes with age is sometimes better mindset, meaning being less stressed, you know, fewer things to worry about, less pressure on yourself, because I bet he thinks he's already crushed it, and he has. And so I think he probably has less pressure for that reason, and he might also be able to make better quick decisions without, you know, breaking on the wall because he might have made a mistake. I think he might be able to handle those pressures better. I think that's maybe what he's bringing with him, kind of that experience. But so we shall see. Yeah, it'll be really fun.
He's always been a good competitor.
Yeah, I mean,
you know, so he's got that.
Yeah, he's seasoned. And so, yeah, I'm curious. And that's kind of like what outweighs, you know, the lack of recovery, but maybe being able to make certain decisions on the wall and dealing with the pressure. Plus, I do think the crowd will be cheering for him. But as I said, yeah, like having this one route, it could just be something that doesn't suit him. There could be some weird move or like a hold that he hasn't used. I don't know, that could throw him off too, right? He could fall low. That's the thing about league climbing that I find so interesting is literally semifinals, you have one shot. And you go. So
yeah,
super fun. Okay, but let's transition in more just like what we think of, you know, aging and climbing. And I mean, you've already mentioned one thing, you know, this has actually come up on Instagram lately. Like when we talk about people and aging and climbing and we think you can still do so much, it doesn't mean that we're not acknowledging an aging body. Like bodies do age, we do change. And we'll talk a little bit about biology too, but whether or not it's the biology in our bodies that change, our lifestyle changes and evolves. We do get busier. We are different people when we're 40 compared to when we're 20. Many things are different. So we're not saying that you can do the exact same things as if you were 20. That's not what we're trying to say. But for most people listening, we say you can probably do a lot more than you think. That's what we want to say, because we see it so much. We get inspired by people who are quote unquote older who still do so much. And there's research out there suggesting that our bodies are not aging in ways that people believe. And certainly Mercedes and I were our own experiments. I was just telling my father-in-law last night how I feel like I'm still getting stronger every year. And I remember having a conversation when I started coaching with Mercedes, meaning when she coached me initially. I had a conversation with her about having this scarcity mindset around aging. And it was a really wonderful, beautiful conversation. And Mercedes reminded me, she said, you know what, Katja, most people will never, ever reach their genetic potential, meaning just based on our genes and our body composition, we have so much potential, right? But because of how we trained at different points in our life, or how we didn't train, like meaning how maybe we started training quite late in our lives, like I did, start training pretty late in my life, quote unquote late, it means I will never ever reach my genetic potential, which means I have so much room for improvement still, even though I'm 41 and I'm about to turn 42. So I am still getting stronger every year. And what's been amazing for me to see too is actually also the reactions I'm getting from people. Because even when I started becoming a coach, or when I started training, because I was already older, and I think some people they made comments about different things about my training or my intentions and all these things. But I think now they have now seen how much I've progressed over the last 3 years even. And I think that is inspiring to people in different ways. And I certainly get really inspired. I told Mercedes too, I live in Salt Lake City, and I'm around a lot of really strong female older athletes. Older meaning they're in their 40s, but they are still climbing just so well. And as you said, Mercedes, they still climb, like their climbing still has changed. They don't climb the same way they did when they're 20, but they are still climbing well. They're still enjoying themselves. They can express themselves on the wall. And I want to just give one example. I'm doing this competition with my friend. I don't want to mention her name because I don't know if she's okay being on the podcast, but she's also, her mom, our kids go to school. They're in the same class together, right? And she's a local crusher, like big time crusher. And so it's one thing that she's really strong and amazing and just an amazing climber. But one of the things that she's been working on lately, meaning the last couple of years, are coordination type movements and dynos. And when she goes up and she does that stuff on the wall, she looks so young. She looks so young when she does it, and that's so impressive to me. I mean, yes, are the competition kids better at it than her? Probably. But it's still amazing that she's still able to acquire that skill, that springy type of coordination type skill, simply because she wanted to learn it too. And she's not telling herself right away, I can't. And she also, I will say, just brings so much joy to climbing. And that's another thing I think makes her so youthful. She's just like laughing and just having fun and just trying things and not getting too serious about it. So anyway, that's my spiel about it. I'm constantly inspired by people around me, and I see a lot of people who kind of put themselves down before they even try training or getting better or any of these things, and mostly with language. I see it all the time, which is why I thought we should record this podcast episode to encourage people to change their mind and just get started and see what they can do. Okay, that's my spiel. What do you have to add, Mercedes?
Yeah, I think that climbing and tennis, tennis is like the sport that I started my athletic journey on, are considered lifetime sports. Whereas like American football, probably not a lifetime sport. Soccer, not a lifetime sport, because there's an impact with other people. It's unpredictable in that way. But with like climbing, where it's a little bit more controlled, same with tennis, those things you can do them as long as you want. As long as you're stoked and you want to keep showing up, you can do it for as long as possible. And honestly, like I still see like older folks who are playing tennis. This is a tennis example where they're actually still better when they're as they get older, because they can figure out how to do the technique without having to waste a bunch of energy. And that goes for climbing as well. Like once, like if you climb for long enough, you're going to figure out how to do things that suits your body, and you're able to do moves with more ease, which means that you actually don't have to rely so much on strength. You know, yeah, as you get older. I used to get really frustrated as a young player when I would play older, like people in their like 50s. I used to like play a lot of matches against basically anyone who wanted to play with me, and I would get so frustrated when these old guys would still beat me. Like if they were beating me, I get like so upset because I'm like, well, they're old. Like actually, they're super smart and they know how to move you around the court and they know how to get into your head. I don't know. I also think that our culture and like Western society, we don't value um, wisdom in the older population. Like, you know, like in Asian countries, it seems like they really put like their elders on a pedestal. You know, these are people that they can talk to and still have like they have so much respect and value. Like these people are still so valuable in society, and in the Western culture I just don't see that. You know, we kind of like put older people away, you know, like we put them, we just don't want to see them, you know. And so I think that's where some of this mindset comes from of, well, I don't have a lot of time, I got to try to do what I can now, and once I hit this age I'm done, you know. And that's just not the case. And it seems like with aging, we talk a lot about how the body isn't capable of doing certain things. Like, oh, once you hit 30 years old, that's it. It's all downhill. And that's not true. That is just not true. And, you know, it's more about being sedentary than it is about aging. And it's just that priorities change. Like if you go to college, you're walking around campus all day, you're probably really active with your friends, you know, you're just like moving all day, and now you're climbing, like you're just doing a lot. And then all of a sudden, you know, you get a full-time job, and now that job in your mind is probably taking the most priority. So you're, if you have to work longer, you're like, well, I guess I'm not going to go to the gym, you know. And so you're making these decisions to prioritize other things in your life over being active. And then you maybe wake up one day and you're like, oh my God, I feel stiffer, I feel tired, I've gained X amount of weight, like it's because I'm old. I'm like, no, actually it's because of the last 5 years of you not doing anything.
Yes,
you know?
I love this so much, Mercedes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
It's the decisions we've made along
Yeah.
the way. It's the lifestyle that has changed that then makes us feel older. I think that is so important for people to hear. And I think it's hard for people to hear too. You know, because it's like, in some way, it's like comforting to be like, oh, it's my age. You know, because it's hard sometimes to be like, well, I guess it's the decisions that I made. Mm-hmm. However, I will also remind people, if it's decisions that you made, that's also easier to work on. If it was really just biology, that would be really hard to work on. But if you can recognize, okay, it's decisions that I make, or it's the lifestyle that I've had, that means you can change it. And that's really what we would love to encourage people, is to consider what are the changes that you can make, what's within your power. Because it's likely not your biology that's keeping you back. Maybe a little bit, perhaps. And, you know, different people have different things going on. We recognize that. We're not here to say to be Chris Sharma and go to the nationals, but we're here to say that we think you can probably do more than you think with your body. That's it. And so if doing more than you think with your body means going climbing 3 times a week instead of 2 times, or maybe just adding a strength training session, which we have found helps people tremendously feel better in so many ways, not just climbing, but as a human, if that means just adding 1 strength session. If you have a human body, you can strength train. Anybody can strength train. Now, you might have to start differently. You might have to make adjustments and meet your body where it's at. But if you don't think you can do it today, then what makes you think you can do it tomorrow? Like literally today's the best day to get started. And you can start easily. That is so, so important. I just started training. This is my favorite story today. A 63-year-old athlete. I keep telling her I want her on my podcast. Well, on our podcast, excuse me, Mercedes, because she's so inspiring to me. And, we started training her with very, I don't like to say easy things because, we met her body where it's at, but it didn't mean that she was lifting 200 pounds. I mean, like deadlifting, but she is now deadlifting. She's using barbells to deadlift, and she's doing a bunch of other things. And she didn't come in super strong already, like a weightlifter. She had some experience, but and she says, one of the things that she says about training, she started with me, 63 years old. She said, even just getting out of bed in the morning feels so much better. Her everyday life has changed because she started to invest in herself and sees these changes, and it's just literally so inspiring to me. But yeah, I want to just remind people, as Mercedes, I just love the way Mercedes told this story, which we have not told it this way, which is really like, yeah, after college, your life changes and then you adjust your lifestyle. And that is usually more sedentary than before college. And that is really important to recognize for people. And I will share the study that was actually published in one of the most prestigious journals, not just for nutritional science, for science, period. In fact, that journal is called Science. It's a very big journal. And that was a study about our metabolism because, I used to be a nutrition coach. Well, I still do some nutrition coaching, but it used to be a bigger focus of mine. Now I focus on climbing coaching more. And one of the common misconceptions that people have, the stories that people tell themselves is, they get what quote unquote out of shape, they gain weight, and then they're like, it's because I'm older, my metabolism slowed down. People tell themselves the story that their metabolism slowed down, which in reality, people slow down. Just like Mercedes said, after college, we get a job. Often our jobs are sedentary, and then we also start families. And let me tell you, I have a kid myself. And yes, being pregnant and all these things, I want to acknowledge the difficulties of gaining weight while you're pregnant and all of this. I want to leave this, maybe we can do a separate podcast episode actually talking about pregnancy and coming back and, gaining weight, losing weight, and some misconceptions around that. But I want to just stay focused on just everybody else's life. We gain weight, or some people gain weight, and they're like, oh, my metabolism slows down. This scientific study has shown that our metabolism slows down between the ages of, I believe, 5 and 20. So, like our metabolism is super fast when we, are 5 years old, and then it does slow down somewhat until we're 20. But after the age of 20, it doesn't slow down again. And this is just the physiology of our metabolism, right? Our metabolism itself doesn't slow down again until we're about 60. So between 20 and 60, just based on your biology, your metabolism doesn't just like magically change. And that's why you gain weight. But really what does change is how we behave. Our behavior changes in terms of both, actually. And so for weight gaining, it's interesting because both things change. One, we tend to be more sedentary. And also, I don't want to put words in people's mouth, but it happens often that just the way we eat changes too a little bit as we're getting older and as we're getting busier. Not to say that 20-year-olds have the maybe healthiest diet, but in terms of maybe more events around food with work, lots of events with kids, all these events that promote maybe an unhealthy lifestyle. And also, I want to just say this definitely happened to me, like eating when we're stressed. I am someone who found a lot of comfort in eating when I was stressed. So I got this PhD purely fueled on Tillamook Mudslide, which used to be my favorite ice cream. I do not kid you. I would eat a whole carton, and back in the days, they were larger. They were half-a-gallon cartons. It was insane. People just get nauseated watching me, but I would eat so much ice cream purely because it was really stressful to get a PhD. Now, I was very fortunate that I was also able to metabolize all of that ice cream for different reasons, but I didn't also eat ice cream like that every night. But I definitely used that, and I think I see that and acknowledge that when life gets stressful, food can be very comforting. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. It's more that I want to say it's important that we're aware of what is actually happening, especially if we want to make changes, right? Because if we tell ourselves, oh, it's metabolism, or I have these, all these issues in our body, whatever issues we could have because I'm older, I would just encourage people to sit down, think about it. Well, what's another story I could tell myself? Could I tell myself, okay, I'm recognizing I haven't really invested in my physical health in a while, or I haven't invested in my physical health in a certain way in a while, or I haven't tried this or that. Because another thing with all these little ailments that we could get in our bodies, or our shoulders are tweaky and all these things, is also if we're losing muscle mass and just strength over time because we're not using our body, of course our body's going to feel tweaky. Of course our body's not going to feel strong because we're not using our body. And similar, I can't speak to flexibility so much because Mercedes is the knowledgeable one, but if we're not using our body in a certain way, of course we're going to get more inflexible because we're like limiting the ranges of motions for our bodies. If we're not using it, our body's like, well, if you're not using me, I'm not going to hang around. It's like expensive. Biologically, it's expensive to keep muscle mass around. Why keep it around, and why keep flexibility around if we're not using it? So it's almost like, yeah, anyway, I don't have a good analogy, but I just want to encourage people to get started with whatever they want to get started.
Yeah, that's interesting that you brought up, like, it's expensive to keep muscle mass around. And I think that's why it's just expensive to move. And the body is trying to naturally conserve energy. And I think that's why it feels really hard to get started with being active if you haven't been active for a while, because your body is fighting against you. It's like, no, like, I am trying to conserve energy here. I've just been conserving energy for the last 5 years, and now you're making me do all of these things, and it feels really hard. It will feel hard to get back into it. And you do have to kind of fight against like this feeling of tiredness, which is why, like, Katya and I talk a lot about just get started. That's the tagline, is just get started and see how it feels. If you still feel really tired, that's okay. You could stop, but you at least tried, because your body, it is going to send the signals of tiredness until like it starts getting warmed up, and it's like, okay, yeah, this is good. I like this. And then you actually start feeling better through the workout. And then by the end of the workout, you're like, oh my God, I feel so good. So just know that the body is designed to conserve energy. Like as through evolution, we were a very active species, very active. And so when we had time to rest, the body would double down on that. So our bodies don't really match society right now, so we have to do the things that our body was made to do, which is move a lot. I want to just talk about one athlete I just started working with. She is in her late 40s. Her kids are just got into climbing, and so she's like going to the climbing gym with them, and hasn't really ever worked out before. Like, she's a kind of like a runner a little bit, did a little bit of this and that. I think might have played soccer in high school, but hasn't really done anything. And so she had a really interesting question. She was like, I really want to start training. I want to put on muscle mass because I know I'm about to go through menopause. And I hear that's like really important for women to have muscle mass. She asked can I just do a training program for 3 months and then not have to train again? And I think this is like a common misconception that you only need to put time in for a short amount and then you're good. And I had to be so real with her. And I was like, I'm sorry, like, I can't give you that gift, unfortunately, but what you're going to start now is what you're going to have to continue to do for the rest of your life. If this is the goal, if the goal is to have good muscle mass, to be able to move really well, to be able to climb with your kids, you have to find something that you can do consistently day in and day out.
Yeah. Oh, that's a really good one. It's really, we talk about this, how we like making training a lifestyle. So like, we don't even think about training like as, oh, we need to go and do this thing, because it's just part of a lifestyle. Like, literally last night I came home late. I didn't train I was supposed to last night. And so I came home late from the grocery store, and while I was making dinner, I would run downstairs, I would do pull-ups, then I do push-ups, and then I did a core, and I ran upstairs and I made dinner, and I came downstairs, I did pull-ups, I did push-ups, I did core, some PT, ran upstairs, made dinner, and I did it again. that's it. I just integrated. I'm like, that's the minimum I can do today. That will be way better than not doing anything. And it took me, 3 times 5 minutes to do this little circuit. And it's really a matter of integrating it. But the thing is, it's true for anything else we do. I'm a native German speaker, and after I moved to the United States, I wasn't speaking German very regularly. Now I do because my son speaks German, and I lost it. I lost my own, like my mother language. I lost the fluency of it. And so even that if you would imagine you could never lose it, but because I wasn't using it, as you said, actually, we talked about activity being expensive earlier. Just this idea of like, just the body wants to conserve energy. And I think with anything that we're not using regularly, our body's like, well, let's not just keep holding on to this thing. I mean, obviously speaking German came back to me more quickly, but still it was weird for me to go and travel to Germany and not remember all these words when I grew up in that country. And so I think that is true for a lot of things. So yeah, if you're interested in strength training, and this is actually true also, again, I used to do nutrition coaching for making diet changes. People want to go on a diet for 3 months and then go back to their old diet. I'm like, no, for you to be the healthiest version of yourself, you just make that change and you make it in a way that you could change it essentially for the rest of your life. Like, you're not just doing this change for 3 months. We're looking into just like, making changes altogether that are sustainable and that you can integrate into a new life, really. And that's the way to go. I also love what you said about just get started. It reminds me of the saying, I think it's by James Clear. I don't know where he got it from. Action comes before motivation. I do think it's a bit of a myth. Sometimes people think, oh, I just don't want to do this thing. And I like to say is, well, that's something your body might not know about. So your body might not want to go and lift weights if you've never done it. Your body doesn't know what it's like. So it's really hard to ask your body to get motivated about something that you've never done. So sometimes we have to get started on the thing before we get motivated to actually do it.
Yeah. Well, I also, this is why I really like long-term programs, and most of our clients have stayed with us for so long because it takes longer than 3 months to make considerable change. Like, yeah, you'll see changes, but in case of this client who wants to gain muscle mass, that is going to take years for the amount of muscle mass that she wants to gain, for health and longevity. And everything takes time, and unfortunately, like, again, like, I'm just going to blame everything on society. We just have like this quick fix mindset. Like, oh, I can like get some abs in like 6 weeks, or I can climb stronger in 4 weeks if I did this every day, but it's not sustainable. Like, all of our training programs, everything that we work on with our clients is with long-term in mind. Like, can you do this? Like, if you did this program, do you think you could do this for the next 6 months? Does your lifestyle allow that? Do you have the mental capacity for that? How badly do you want it? And a lot of the time, working out 6 days a week with like very intense workouts is not feasible for people. It's just not. Like, you have to sacrifice a lot. You do. And so that's better to approach something with longevity in mind. Like, what is something I can do a couple times a week, high intensity, and then what's something I can do every day that I can just integrate, like going for a walk every day. I can do 10 minutes of stretching, no problem, anyway.
Yeah. I love this. I want to give a quick update before we wrap this up. Just check the scores. And something that I just realized, I was totally wrong. I don't know what I was thinking, but I said that 25 climbers are going to make it into final, right? I was thinking semifinal. That doesn't make any sense. 25 climbers make it into the semifinal.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense. And then like the top 10 or 12 go to final.
Yeah. Actually, I think for lead, it might only be top 8.
Maybe. Ooh. Then yeah. I don't think Chris is going to make it to final.
Yes. I want to just give an update. I just saw. So he has climbed. He's currently in 4th place. But there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 more climbers to go. So Mercedes might be right. I apologize that I got this wrong.
I was like, that's a lot of people in finals, but
it is. I don't know what I was thinking. I was thinking into semis because I was talking about them being in semis. I don't know. I just totally got this backwards. That makes sense.
That's all right.
Sorry about that. But it's still very exciting that he is competing. I still think he'll make it to finals.
Oh, but, okay. Fingers crossed. Let's go, Chris. Okay.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a tough one. But anyway, thank you for the inspiration, Chris.
Yeah, this was great. Long story short, though, just keep training, and your body really doesn't decline with age. There is a certain point where it can decline if you have something serious come up in your body. But if things are kind of just going the way that they normally go, then you can just keep crushing until you're 70 years old. You might actually still be climbing just as hard as you were, in your 30s.
Yeah,
I've seen it.
And certainly you might enjoy your life more and just have a lot of fun, feeling very capable, and doing the thing you love.
Yeah.
Okay, don't give up on yourself.
That's right.
Okay.
Thanks a lot, Katya.
Well,
Thanks, everyone. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.